Caracal. Once they finalized their decisions, Ursula left the room to order food and drink. Caracal hoped it would temper her mood. Though Ursula was generally a gentle, compassionate soul, when the young woman lacked nourishment, she could become a nightmare to deal with. I apologize about Ursula. We've been through more in the last few days than we usually do in a rotation. Caracal chose her words carefully about the friend she was willing to sacrifice her life for. With your profession, that's saying something, Petal said. Caracal loved Petal's sultry voice. Despite the heated discussion, Caracal smiled. It certainly is. Can you tell me about what it was like to leave, for Dentrima's words to take hold on you? Petal asked. Caracal relived the memory. It was like I wasn't even there. I could feel nothing, influence nothing. It was lucky Ursula had grabbed our packs before the words took hold. Otherwise, we would have had to leave everything behind. I am angry, though. About what? Petal asked. Caracal moved away from the desk and sat on the opposite side of Petal's straw bed. Our regional guild leader stole something from me and had it sold. I don't even know which town or city it's in now. I tried to find out during our scuffle, but by the time I was about to finish her, Dentrima's words were in effect, and we had to go. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be. Dentrima saved my life. Ursula's too. Caracal leaned in earnestly. Would anyone else know where your lost item is? Petal asked. It was a locket, and no, Ursula killed the man who pawned it. I'm glad she ended him, because it likely saved my life, but I don't have any leads, and now I have a rival who wants to kill me more than ever. She has the means to hunt me down. Traveling with us will be very dangerous. If you don't want to take on that risk, I understand. Petal slid her hand along the top sheet, reaching for Caracal. Caracal grasped her delicate hand with tough fingers. Her grip was comforting against the linen. Petal smiled sweetly with plump lips. I appreciate your concern, but I'm just as much a threat to you as you are to me. I'm probably a week away from being driven out of this tavern for preaching heresy to the locals. By then, they'll finally piece together what my songs are referring to. When we're traveling, will you play for us? I'm jealous of Ursula for hearing your song, especially because your music convinced her to stop your assassination. That's why she kept covering the windows. She was protecting me from your arrow. Petal's posture relaxed. Astonished, Caracal asked, You noticed? Don't sound so incredulous. Petal relaxed her hand's grip, but danced her fingers along Caracal's palm. These rooms are stuffy without a breeze. It's obvious when absent. Caracal enjoyed the tickling sensation from Petal's touch. It sent a pleasant shiver up her spine. I understand that all too well. Earlier, when the three of us crammed in here, I was dying. It's much more comfortable with just the two of us. But I am grateful to Ursula for saving my life, as I'm also grateful you did not kill me, even when you met me in the street. I feared what the circumstances were surrounding our encounter, yet they turned out better than I could have hoped. Caracal found herself nodding again. I have to remember to speak up. I agree. So this duel of yours, I'm assuming you did well. Petal's sweet smile curled mischievously. How could she know? Why do you say that? Petal lifted her tiny upturned nose and sniffed. I don't smell blood on you, and you crossed the desert without succumbing to infection. I imagined if you were injured, you'd insist on a bath as soon as you arrived to wash your wounds. I'm accustomed to having blood on my hands. I'm more concerned about washing away sand and sweat, which can wait. But you're right that I'm not hurt. My chapter leader was out of practice. Still, she surprised me. She tried to shine her blade's light in my eyes so I couldn't see. If she had succeeded, she might have cut me. Light can be wielded as a weapon like any other. I'm glad I am immune. Petal's dimpled grin creased her cheeks. If you do not coat your hands with blood again, it'll be your choice. Not because someone assigned you to do it. It will be because you believed it was necessary. That's what it means to be free under Dentrima. However, as a general principle of demonism, we try to avoid causing unnecessary harm whenever possible. Demons spare us from curses. We can return their sacrifice by not adding to their kin's future burdens. Can I ask you something about Dantrima? I might not know, but I'll be happy to answer if I can. Petal raised a thick eyebrow with hesitation. How do you pray? Petal's hesitation melted, and her expression lit with a full-faced smile. Her rising cheeks met her mysterious eyes. I thank him for his sacrifice and his help in my life, even when it's not obvious. That's all there is to it? It can be simple. I also thank him when I wield the warlass abilities he bestowed me with. I'd love to attend another service in dedication to him. It's been too long since I've seen my priest. Could you lead a service for me? I want to express my gratitude and learn more about what being a demonist means. I'd be delighted to try. Petal's glassy eyes shone. Though, we should wait until we're on the road, away from prying ears. Thank you. Caracal squeezed her hand again and released it. Petal's fingers trailed along her own. Her touch left lingering ticklish sensations. We should get something to eat. You must be famished. I am, and I need to freshen up. I'm sure I'm assaulting your nosebuds. Not at all, but I'll meet you in the tavern's dining room when you're ready. Do you have to perform much more tonight? Caracal headed for Petal's door. Yes, and for you, I'll play Save Yourself, the song that Uncilla heard. I can't wait. Caracal had been attracted to women even before she married her husband, but she had never been so intrigued by a female as she had been with Petal. She was undeniably gorgeous, but more than that, Caracal loved that Petal had introduced her to a religion she could support, and wanted to. Caracal missed exercising her faith. For rotations after the horrific events of her past, she thought it would never return to her. Yet, I believe again. Dantrima, for saving my life, for giving a damn, for walking Uncilla and me to safety, you have my heart. While Caracal cleaned herself in the tavern's communal bath, her anticipation built to hear Petal's song. She was also excited for a decent meal, and she hoped Uncilla would behave herself with a full stomach. Caracal adorned traditional Sovani garments from her pack and spritzed a dash of rosewater on her neck. She shoved the guild's stolen spices into her baggy pockets. She doubted such a small tavern could afford a proper chef, and she'd wanted to dress her food to her liking. Petal's strumming filled the halls, and Caracal hurried from the bathing room to listen. Uncilla sat at the bar while Petal played near her window. Oh goodness, where do I sit? I can order food at the bar, and if Uncilla's still being unpleasant, I'll take it closer to Petal's table. She'd probably prefer I didn't eat near her harp, but the rambunctious conversation drowns her ambient plucking. Caracal approached a bartender. A menu, please. He provided a short symbolic list on a stiff papyrus menu. I'll take a cut of the shrew and some beans. She reached into her hefty coin purse, navigated around her gems, withdrew 5 lead coins, and set them on the counter. Anything to drink? Water. Though she wanted wine, she needed to hydrate. Dantrima's enchantment had safeguarded their physical forms for 2 full days of travel into the desert and sustained them all the while. However, they had depleted their stores of water half a day before they reached the tavern. While Caracal waited, she overheard another group speaking. They got Povgar! Povgar! There's no way the Rhysagli would strike so deeply into the realm. Just none. They did it! It disappeared off the map, just like all the other northern towns. There's only 2 left up there. I'd be shitting myself if I were them. I'd leave. Why don't they just all leave? Easy enough for you as a merchant. When your livelihood is rooted in the ground, you can't just take your crops or your forage with you and go somewhere else. Poverty in Hisafe would be better than becoming a blood slave. Why couldn't our financier tell us to kill off the Rhysagli rather than the Crusaders? Of course the beasts are going to be bold enough to strike all the way up to Povgar when humans are eliminating themselves. I won't be surprised if they strike Hisafe tomorrow. It'll take more effort to dismantle the Mosaic Castle than a night raid, but an attempt on Sovain's capital wouldn't be unwarranted given their continued success. Caracal dug her short fingernails into the wooden bar slab in her frustration. When she couldn't stomach the conversation any longer, she swept a probing gaze toward Uncilla. Uncilla stared at her nearly finished dinner. I'm going to bed after this. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow then. Caracal didn't press her. They both needed sleep, and if Caracal barked at her now, she'd probably say something she'd regret. When Caracal's meal came, she took the plate and flagon to an empty table next to Petal. The harper nodded to her while finishing her instrumental song. How did she know I was here? I was going to announce myself once she finished playing. Your song is beautiful. Caracal withdrew dried rosemary and garlic to season the shrew and onion and sage to enliven the beans. Thank you. Save yourself as next. Petal's nostrils flared as if sampling the air. What did you order? The tavern hasn't smelled like real food since I've been here. I can't wait to hear it. I just added some dried herbs to my plate. If you haven't eaten yet, I can dress whatever you order. Caracal stabbed a few beans, and some of them split apart, falling from her fork's prongs to soil her lap. She was glad Petal didn't see her clumsiness, yet even after she treated the frail food more carefully, it still created a mess. I love that. Petal picked up a new melody. After a few bars of instrumental harp music, her vocals accompanied the arrangement. You wrote the illusion and the lies, co-wrote the film before your eyes. See all they don't want you to. You'll then learn what you need to do. You don't need a spawn's help, just save yourself. They only say to have an empty mind, so you don't question their demands. They fear the rise treating them in kind. It's time to take a stand. You don't need a king's help, just raise yourself. Caracal applauded after Petal played another 3 verses regarding angels, slavers, and oppressors. I wonder which verse Ancilla heard. Caracal searched for her friend at the bar, but she had already retired to her room. The song had so enthralled Caracal that she hadn't noticed her friend's departure. I understand the appeal now. The melody, your voice, all of it. Petal smiled sweetly, then raised a few fingers to get the bartender's attention. He left the bar and came over to take her order. I'll have what she had. Petal gestured toward Caracal. He left and returned with another small slab of shrew shortly thereafter. Petal sat her harp on the floor between her legs and the table. Caracal hopped over to her table with her half-finished meal, then adorned Petal's food the same as she had her own. This is delicious. I didn't think the tavern's food was salvageable, but you did it. Petal ate daintily. Not a single morsel fell to her plate or her lap. Caracal flushed at the praise. She was proud of herself and grateful for her culinary skills. Tantrima, thank you for bringing us together. Setting out on the road to Bavati, Caracal requested Petal conduct their first service to honor Tantrima. Ancilla didn't seem eager about it, but she also wasn't in as foul a mood as she had been the previous night. When they established their camp, Petal corroded the sand near the road to form a cave where they could build a concealed fire. The erosion curse had forced a burrowing sand sparrow to the cave's far wall, where Caracal took aim and skewered it with one of her daggers. It was an untidy kill, and an even messier cleanup. Upon removal, the serrated blade shredded the meat. With what bloodied chunks remained, they boiled a stew. Caracal tossed in several herbs, but she wanted to spare what they had, and a little of each produced a splendid flavor. After dinner, Petal removed the bones from the bottom of the stew cauldron, and she set them around the fire. Usually, black candles provide most of the light during a service, but a wood fire will substitute. There's typically an altar, with the teachings of Tantrima scrawled on pages atop it. A ceremonial bell will ring 7 times at the beginning to honor Tantrima as the 7th archspawn. A bell will ring at the end of the service to indicate its conclusion. There can be other instruments playing too, and there's a standard chord progression to follow, but we won't have any of that here. Petal pulled a book with thick pages from her bag. Is that book also ceremonial? Before Caracal could ask, Petal opened it and graced her fingertips along the inside of it. She read, The first teaching from Tantrima the Cruel, to disallow evil to sow its seed under any circumstances. This is his first teaching, for Dantrima knew evil in his mortal life, yet he did nothing to stop it amongst the Dark Ages. Now he is burdened with such evil. He carries the treacheries in retribution for his shortcomings. Yet he has learned from his experience. He spares humankind from his curses. Though he was cruel in his life, he is merciful in death. She had run through a good portion of the page by the end of the quote. What kind of book is that? Again, Caracal didn't want to interrupt the proceedings to ask. Petal read through a few more demonic prayers and played a piece on her harp with melancholic undertones. With the sermon focusing on sparing unnecessary suffering, Petal concluded the impromptu service. Ursula yawned, prepared for bed, and curled up along one edge of the cave. "Thank you for teaching me. I found it fascinating," Caracal whispered. "I was curious about your book." Petal picked it up and opened it, facing her. They stepped away from Ursula to let her rest in peace. Lines and circles covered the pages, but looking at them while moving nauseated Caracal. "How do you read it?" The patterns of indentations and protrusions stand for characters of the holy language. Take this section here. It translates to, "He knows who we are," referring to Dantrima understanding our mind's suffering. There's additional context if you're interested in learning more about the section, but that's the summary of it. "Do you mind if I touch it?" Caracal asked. "Not at all." Caracal brushed tentative fingers over the raised patterns on the pages. She closed her eyes and appreciated the subtle variation of each marking. "Which was the section you mentioned?" Petal glided her hand over the page and bumped into Caracal's. Caracal moved her hand to allow Petal to search without obstruction, but Petal guided Caracal's fingers into place. She closed her eyes again and focused on the feelings of the ridges and the divots under her skin. She appreciated Petal's palm atop hers. After they ran over the section a few times, she opened her eyes and looked at the small lines on the page. She studied the line, uselessly trying to make sense of it. "Would you like to learn to read it?" "I'd have to learn both the patterns and the holy language. My old brain couldn't pick it up." "You don't sound old." "I suppose that was an exaggeration. I'm nearly 50. "I should be offended. That's only a few rotations older than I am. You won't be old for another 50 rotations. "You're sweet, and I appreciate the offer, but languages aren't my forte." "The language of cooking certainly is." "Cooking? A language?" "I see all arts as languages, all subjects even. Maths, sciences, they're all languages, filled with their own rules, exceptions, variations, and nuances. Structure, order, methods, techniques, and protocols. Words organized into a specific structure can convey meaning to you, yet I'd have absolutely no idea. If I spoke about harmonics, time signatures, or other concepts relating to music theory, you might register the words, but not the meanings." "I certainly appreciate the language of sheet music. That's as baffling as the markings on this page." "Where do you think I adapted it from?" "From music?" "My father would punch holes where the notes were. He'd vary their exact shape so I could understand what kind of note they were and how to play them. Meaning ingrained itself into them. Then I expanded the language. I practiced during services at my cathedral growing up. I'd match the feel of the notes with the feel of the words. First for the common tongue, then for the holy language, once I learned it. I had to add more symbols to account for the complex meanings and unrelated concepts, but any of the round symbols stem from music." "That's ingenious." "Again, the offer's open if you'd like to learn." The morning after the trio passed into Bavati's weather barrier and the Broad Bull Forest, Caracal surprised Ursula and Petal with a roasting chevretane. "That smells good." Ursula packed her supplies. "It'll be the last time for a while. We're running low on every seasoning. Unfortunately, the guild didn't stock them well enough." Caracal turned the spit. "We could find more in the next town, but it would be wiser to save the gem. How come you never cooked like this when you had cooking duty?" Ursula grabbed a cup and drank the purified water. "Because then I would have cooking duty every night." Ursula raised her cup to that. Caracal smirked and huffed a breath through her nose. Ursula glanced around the wood, and Caracal wondered what she was looking for. Petal was still sleeping, but Caracal doubted her friend sought the demonist. Caracal mirrored Ursula and scanning the forest. thick trunks sprouted far apart from each other, but their branches interwove into a blanketing canopy. Vibrant purple and yellow shade-loving flowers flourished between the thicket. Ursula said, "It's been such a long time since I've been here. I forgot how pretty it is. I could spend the rest of my days painting the curious patterns in the bark." "It's my first time, but the soil is a welcome change from the sand. Do you know which of these plants are edible? I only recognize a few of the herbs and fruits." Ursula plucked a few violet petals. She ate a couple and passed one to Caracal. "See if you like these." A sweet floral taste spread over Caracal's tongue as she chewed the petal. It would be great as a garnish on pastries. I can imagine the spice of cinnamon and a few petals crushed into a syrup over a sweet roll, or baked into the center of a glazed bun. "I've had them in tea and cider, but both of those sound delectable." Ursula moved to the chevrotain and hacked off its little hooves. Caracal held the spit steady. "I've missed speaking with Ursula like this. She's been distant since we left the Vahantry. Perhaps she's still recovering from the shock of it. Ursula, are you okay?" She sagged her shoulders. "The more I process, the more I knit myself back together. I'm terrified we're going to get a knife in our backs any moment." Caracal thought through the situation aloud. "We disappeared right before the guild. They won't have any idea which direction we headed. They'll assume we paid a transportation mage to escape. When was the last time a transportation mage visited the abandoned cathedral? They wouldn't know where to move us from if they'd never been there." Caracal assumed that what she had heard about transportation mages' limitations was accurate. "They could guess we hired one from our trips around Sovane." Caracal laughed at the irony. "There's only one in the whole impoverished kingdom. Tanzanite's low transportation mage. Wouldn't have the time or energy to help ex-Vahantry members when the Low King's forces are getting massacred before they arrive at the front lines and their reinforcements slain before they even arrived in Sovane. If I had to bet, they'll check Verdun, specifically the Mages College, and ask around the transportation mages there, especially so since enough of them know I'm from there." "Well, it's fortunate we're traveling in the opposite direction, and even more fortuitous that I've left the guild." Ursula straightened. "Why's that?" "Felidae won't be asking me to draw up our wanted posters. Lynx was the next best at it, so she'll have to settle with Panthera's scribbles if the finder's still alive. But I doubt that. Her dagger sunk straight to his heart. Hearing her name scratches my soul. I wish I hadn't hesitated. I wish I had thrown my dagger into her heart. Though it might not have done any good. I doubt she has one. But if I had flung it before Dantrium's protection took hold, it might have finished her." Caracal slapped her palm to her forehead in frustration. "I doubt you would have been vindictive enough to sacrifice your daughter's locket just for the satisfaction of killing her. If Felidae dies, you might never find it. Most likely, whoever owns it now has thrown out the lock of hair inside it. I don't especially care for the metal, but the hair was the last piece of sorrel I had. If Felidae had stolen the locket and left the hair, it wouldn't have been nearly as cruel. I'd still be heated about it, but I'd recover. I guess it's my turn to ask if you're okay." Ursula leaned forward empathetically. Caracal held up 2 fingers and her thumb. "I have 3 concerns on my mind, and ensuring Felidae's slaughter is one of them. Not the most immediate, but the most important. I'm guessing she'll be training for our next encounter for the rest of her miserable life. She'll also have a new blade, even if she takes servals from his corpse." Ursula shuddered and looked at her hands. "Did you like what I did with her last one?" Caracal gloated. The entire guild gasped when the blade snapped. "I liked that sword. I wish I had stolen it rather than the spices. Could you imagine how great I'd look wielding it?" Caracal fantasized, holding the sword, the weight of the rippling blade heavy in her grip. "Before you get caught up in your ego, let's get the chevrotain off the fire. Even you can't save burnt meat." The 3 women arrived in Bavati's Ferry of the Singer on better terms. They had gorged themselves on the plentiful food of the kingdom and traveled in comfort all the while. Petal had sculpted a cave in the ground every evening to protect against forest foxes stealing their food supplies in the night, but that was the greatest of their worries. "Should we sail tonight or tomorrow morning?" Caracal asked her traveling companions at the edge of town. "If we wait, we can either camp in the woods again or pay the coppers for a room." "I don't have Bavatian coppers, only Sovani lead," Ursula said. "I might have a few from patron tips. Petal reached into her gem pouch and tasted each metal edge to seek the auburn coins. Ursula wrinkled her nose, but offered with a bright tone. We can look for you. It'd be faster, although I don't think a few coins would be enough for the lodging. Petal's smile didn't reach her eyes. No need to trouble yourself. I was wrong. I don't have any. We'd have to make an extra stop at a jeweler to trade our coins if we book an inn, so I vote we proceed straight to the dockyard. I'm exhausted, and I've never slept better than on a gentle rocking of a small craft. A beaming smile crossed Ursula's face. I was hoping to post a letter while we're in town, Petal said. I wanted to tell my contact in Coserai to expect us. I'll need to visit the exchange anyway. Ursula's expression fell. We'll need to procure the elemental's currency anyway, won't we? Caracal asked. She had never sailed and didn't know the customs. We're probably already set with the gem we have on us. I wouldn't know about Petal, though. Caracal didn't understand the reason for the underlying animosity in Ursula's words. Her friend spoke with an amiable tone, but each remark subtly tore into the harbor without cause. I need to get copper coins anyway, Caracal said. I decided on restocking the herbs. It'll be nice to have fresh ones for a change. Since evening descends on us, I feel it would be best to stay the night. We can restock everything we need and then leave tomorrow. I have no preference whether we rough another night in the woods or stay in the comfort of an inn. I agree with Ursula. I'm tired, and I'd like a night's sleep in the cushion of a bed rather than the hard earth again, Petal suggested. I can ask around to the various inns if they require a bard tonight. Caracal was glad Petal rose above Ursula's childish antics to broker peace between them. Why is Ursula acting like this again? She has no reason to this time. I thought tensions had improved since we left the desert. That's great for you, but Caracal and I would have to waste our coin to pay our own way, Ursula said. Caracal rolled her eyes. Would you prefer to sleep in the woods? You just said you were exhausted and wanted a good night's sleep. On a boat that's taking us closer to our destination, not an inn that's delaying our arrival. Caracal scoffed. I'm tired of this. It can't be helped. If you want to pay for a trip to Coserai alone tonight, feel free to wait for us in the ferry of the harbor. It'll be cheaper to wait and book passage with us tomorrow, including the price of an inn stay, than it would be to travel alone. Besides, I can check to see if I can barter for a discounted rate for you both. Petal tried negotiating. I appreciate her efforts, even if they fail. I'd rather sleep in the woods and save the coin. Ursula backtracked from the town and set up a sleeping area along the open road. No makeshift cave, no safety. Petal asked, Should I? No, she's made her choice. Petal and Caracal found the jewelers and switched their currencies separately, though Caracal kept careful watch over Petal's transaction. I'm sure Petal will know if she's shortchanged, but I don't want the jeweler to even try it. With enough copper coins in hand to purchase a room and to send a letter, they checked if the various inns had already sponsored a musician for the evening. All did, so they went to the largest of the four in hopes that Harper might accompany their metal whistle. The innkeeper agreed to Petal's request for boarding in exchange for performing, and graciously gave Caracal a generous discount on her room. Petal knew all the songs the whistler played and provided a background harmony to enhance the brass voice. She's doing a masterful job, but they don't know how much more vibrant the sound would be if Petal took the melody. When Petal unleashes her harp song, it's moving beyond words. When the patrons headed for their rooms, the musicians quelled their volume, and only when a few customers lingered in the inn's large dining hall did they stop. Caracal approached the platform stage to tell her what a fantastic job she had done. Petal spoke before she had the chance. I know it's late, but would you mind helping me draft the letter? If you're too tired, we can do it tomorrow. She gathered her harp to her arms, toed the platform edge, and probed for the floor with what must have been immaculate thigh strength. Stop thinking about her legs. I don't mind staying up. Thank you. They retreated to Petal's room. There was no desk, so Caracal sat on the floor and leaned parchment and quill against the clothing chest. Shadows fell across the page. She searched for the room's wavering candle. It sat near Petal on her nightstand. Do you mind if I move the light? Caracal asked. One of Petal's thick brows drew upward in confusion. I won't be needing it. I wasn't sure if you were enjoying the flame's warmth. Since you had noticed when Ursula blocked the window, I figured it would be similar. That's considerate of you, but I don't need it. Caracal grabbed the pewter candlestick and moved it to light the page. Okay, I'm ready to start when you are. The harper cleared her throat. Piety, I'm traveling with 2 companions. I had to flee Sylvain. An unknown party paid for my assassination, so I am coming to you to seek shelter and guidance. I was not the only one targeted, but lies muddled the identities of our fellow worshippers in the assassin's contract. The only one specifically not mentioned is Master Entortis. Have you heard from him? I fear he may have been captured. You think this Entortis betrayed you? After scribing the words, Caracal searched Petal's darkened expression. How surprising, another mage that's not to be trusted. Please don't put this part in the letter. Out of all of us, my description and location was the only accurate one in your contract, whereas Entortis's closest confidant had the least correct about her. I love all my brothers and sisters of faith, but he made the endeavor a challenge. His desire for piety's attention was unrivaled among our congregation, and any time I wrote another song to promote the faith, Entortis's jealousy grew. Caracal understood that feeling all too well with Ursula. One of us had to be taken for questioning. The similarities aren't coincidental. I'm not certain it was Entortis, but it is suspicious. Which is why you weren't accusing him outright, but rather suggesting he might have befallen trouble. Your concern, whether feigned or genuine, preserves Piety's opinion of you, while highlighting Entortis as a suspect. Petal played with one of her ringlets. I'll let Piety draw his own conclusions. Piety was your priest? He's wonderful. You'll love him. Warmth lined her voice, and a reminiscent smile touched her lips as she spoke of him. I'm sure I will. Petal might be infatuated with him. She missed the services to Dantrema, but was it the ceremony or the priest she had missed? Caracal's own jealousy stirred, but she stilled it. A relationship with Petal might be too much to hope for. Then again, she said she loved all her brothers and sisters of faith. Perhaps her feelings are platonic. Regardless, if Petal feels the same way toward me, those feelings will reveal themselves in time. Are you ready to continue the letter? Yes. We're in the Ferry of the Singer, so will likely take between 7 days to a week to reach you between sailing and searching for the settlement. We have no other contingency plan in place, so if we do not arrive, I cannot say where we've gone. I will send another letter if possible. I don't want to waste gem with extraneous messages, but it'll depend on our plight. I hope to rejoin you soon. I cannot wait to connect with the next group of followers you've amassed. I've heard a tale from Khazarish travelers, but none have visited the village you've created. It will warm my bones to worship in a proper shrine again. I anticipate the return of the dark cathedrals, too, though I know that will be a long way off. What would a dark cathedral look like? I keep imagining something like the ruins the guild used, but I'm sure it would be different, especially if it's not in disrepair. I pray to Dantrema to prevent curses from falling upon you and the others. May we all find quiet peace, if only for a moment. Love, Petal. Oh. Is there any more room at the bottom? If so, I'd like to add the line, he knows who we are. From the text? Yes, but I want to do it with my own hand. We might be up until morning if I describe each of the markings. There's space. Will you guide my hand to the empty area? Of course. Caracal switched from the floor to the bed. She leaned over Petal to lay the sheet on her nightstand and placed the quill in her hand. Petal's smoky vanilla scent delighted her, and there was a sweetness to the curve of her neck. Petal squeezed all the ink from the quill's base and stained her calloused fingertips black. She rubbed them dry and traced the edges of the letter. With the empty tip, she laid it at the bottom of the page. You have a little more space than that. Caracal set her hand on Petal's and guided it to the beginning of the gap. Here. Petal dented the paper in an even row, like handwriting. When she finished with one side, she flipped the paper over and added markings on the other to fill in the message. She fingered both sides and smiled. With the quote isolated from the rest of the text, Caracal could more readily identify the pattern of lines and bumps. Thank you for helping me, Caracal. Petal leaned her head against Caracal's shoulder, Petal's hair pressed against the nape of her neck. I'm more than happy to. Caracal tilted her head to rest atop hers, and elation curled her toes. Can she hear my heart racing through my chest? Did you have another name before you joined the guild? I did. I'm afraid it's not representative of who I am any longer. If you were a chef before the guild, I think that name would be fitting. How did you know? Caracal pulled her head up in surprise. A guess. Petal sat up and smiled softly. My name was Carrot. Caracal couldn't believe she had told her. I haven't even told Ursula my birth name. My mom always called me her tall Carrot. Carrot's a lovely name. You've always been tall then? I was often mistaken for being older than I was because of it. Did that contribute to your overestimation of your age? It took a moment for Caracal to realize that Petal was referring to their previous conversation. She's as sharp as one of my daggers. Perhaps it does. A moment of silence passed, and the weight of the late night tugged upon Caracal's eyelids. She shifted back along the bed, preparing to excuse herself. Can I ask you another question? Petal's interest reinvigorated Caracal. Sure. What was important about your locket? It's a sad story, and not a short one. Caracal glanced at the moons outside the window. I won't press you. If it's too late, we can say goodnight. It's not too late. Caracal told her story of losing her late husband and her daughter Sorrel. It brought back all her animosity toward angelism and incompetent healing mages to the forefront of her thoughts. How horrid for you and your family. I wish I could hope for better treatment from the priests of our sister religion, but I've heard similarly terrible tales too often. Petal stroked a hand against the small of Caracal's back. It was too much to handle. I had to escape. Caracal brushed a growing tear from her eye. Let's dream of the future, then. Petal went on to describe all she had heard of Piety's village nestled in the white dogwood forest. I'd like that, Caracal said. A fresh start. Speaking of fresh starts, if we want to have any sort of a start tomorrow, we should turn in for the night. Good night, then. Caracal stood from the bed and made for the door. Good night. She returned to her own room and noticed how low her candle had burnt, marking the passage of time. But she wouldn't have traded it for sleep. She savored the moments she could steal alone with Petal. Staying up late talking in each other's rooms, it reminded her of adolescent escapades. Her thoughts muddled between intense emotions of anticipation and snippets of conversation. Lying in bed, Caracal lost all sense of exhaustion. Her mind raced between all the little touches and moments they'd shared. I'm acting like a child. I need to sleep. I need to be alert for tomorrow. Perhaps I'll try meditating. Better yet, I'll practice praying. Dentrima, I don't know if I've been praying right, but I figured I'd give it another go. Thank you. If you had not saved me, I never would have gotten to know Petal. We never would have become as close as we have. I'm so grateful to know her, and to know her through you. Also, thank you for not cursing humanity and destroying civilization and all of that too. Caracal knew the last part was rushed. Even though it was an afterthought, it was still heartfelt. She was finally rediscovering peace within herself, and she drifted to sleep. The next morning, after they left the tavern, Caracal and Petal strolled through the fairy town together. Petal stopped at one of the fruit stands. These sweet fruits smell heavenly. We should bring some with us on the boat. Caracal couldn't smell the fruit through its discolored yellow skin. I never would have thought this was sweet fruit if she hadn't said so. Its exterior doesn't even look like food. We'd need to hire an oxen cart if we're going to purchase more than one. With good humor, Petal chuckled. I'll carry the cart myself if I have to. After she moved on to the next stall, she asked, Surely you can taste the sour spurt and lemon in the air. Only because the manager's cutting some for one of the customers. Which look the best? I want a couple. They aren't big enough to fill an entire sack, and we need something to eat with nutrients to keep our health up once we set sail. Caracal guided her to the ones with the fewest blemishes. Petal picked the ones she suggested and took them to the counter to pay for them. Caracal searched the limes, red berries, oranges, mushrooms, and palm fruits for her own supply. After they finished their grocery shopping, they browsed sequoia-carved utensils and statues with the likeness of the archdemon Rataz, who was the patron archspawn of Bavadi. Copper candlestick holders with flourishing embellishments caught Caracal's eye from another market stand, but they needed to move along. It was already nearing first sun high. Their last stop would be to post Petal's letter before they tracked down Ancilla. "Is the transportation mage going to know where Piety is?" Caracal asked on their way. "He's a friend of Piety's, though he isn't aware of our persuasion. But he should know where to send my letter." Inside the post, some patrons read the daily news together, and one customer waited in line to speak with the courier. Petal and Caracal stood behind them, listening to the story. Caracal faced Petal and didn't have a view of any of their faces.
"It's about damn time they start taking our well-being into account. It's too dangerous otherwise."
"Wonder what that's about."
"I've been saying they should do this for rotations, long before any of these recent developments."
"Could be anything." Caracal shifted her weight from one boot to another.
"Incompetence? Incompetence everywhere. Every single monarch. Queen Serpentine might have her kingdom under control, but the rest of us are in trouble. Ask you'll help us."
"Maybe the next iteration of the crusade?"
"I'm confused about what forces they'll use. Since our regional army hasn't been massacred yet, I'm guessing we'll be prime target to steal soldiers from. And then when the Rhysicli have eaten through Sovane and are at our door, we won't have any left to protect ourselves."
"Not the crusade, then, but what?" Petal's turn arrived. "I'd like to post this to Coserai." "Certainly. A standard letter is 50 copper coins." Petal scooped out her previously separated copper coins and counted them on the counter. "It says they're going to be searching through every town. It won't just be our soldiers used for this effort."
To prevent their escape, they're going to start with port towns like ours, checking every ship and patrolling the roads. Well, that's a relief. Maybe it'll scare them away from our lands for a while." "What are they talking about?"
"I don't see how they possibly could. The resources required would be insane. Besides, I don't think it'd even be effective. I'm certain they don't live with the rest of us."
Caracal's stomach tightened like a sand snake wrapping around itself with each comment. At the end of Petal's transaction, she asked, "Carrot, would you mind reading what the news headline is? I'm intrigued by their conversation, and I want to know if I should purchase the daily parchment." Petal's use of her birth name jostled Caracal. She had been so focused on listening to the conversation behind her that she hadn't thought to glance around the shop. "Not much use in that. Those three already told you pretty much all there is to know." The courier glared at the unobservant gossiping patrons before disappearing into the back with Petal's letter. Caracal gulped. "The High King subdues Vahantri activity." When Caracal and Petal arrived in the woods where they had left Ancilla, a dozen soldiers in bronze armor had rounded up everyone camping in the immediate area. The vagabonds lined up with Ancilla standing at the end. One by one, they commanded each suspect to strip, and the soldiers searched their bodies for the Vahantri brand. Ancilla hid her left hand in the folds of her walking skirts, but they'd find it easily enough. A tightness grew in the back of Caracal's throat as the soldiers neared Ancilla. Even as she swallowed to try and clear it, the sensation only worsened. Caracal realized that her only option was to eliminate the platoon. If she remained concealed, she might get through 3 before they discovered her position. It could be enough of a distraction to help Ancilla escape, but she dreaded the prospects. "I left the Vahantri so I wouldn't have to keep killing soldiers. I doubt they're about to set any trays of food out for her, so Dantrima's wisdom won't help here either." Caracal gripped the hilt on one of her serrated daggers hanging from her belt. Petal touched her hand. "We can save Ancilla without violence. Remember my sermon from the previous night. As part of our faith, we avoid inflicting unnecessary harm onto others." Like when she had called Dantrima from the sands, Petal raised her hands to direct a curse upon the earth. Corrosion weaved under the clinging metal boots, sucking each soldier down into the earth. They clutched for whatever they could as they slid down the hollow shafts. The travelers gasped and tested the ground beneath their own feet. Those who stood naked donned their clothing once more. The others scattered as soon as they realized they could leave without repercussion. Ancilla darted toward the ferry. Caracal intercepted her path. Ancilla grasped her by the wrist.
Caracal, I was terrified I'd be separated from you. I'm so glad you're here.
They're searching the boats. We can't go to Coserai.
There's nowhere left for us to go.
Ursula covered her face with her hands. Petal joined them. We can head through the forest again toward the sand dunes. There's not a direct route there, so we'll avoid the main roads. Then we can ask Lemniscate where might be safe. Ursula glanced in the intended direction.
We'll head straight through the cursed part of the forest if we do that.
I can navigate us around it, but we must make up our minds now. Those soldiers will be crawling out of those holes in another 36 heartbeats. Ursula nodded, her mouth pulled into a tight line. Okay, to the Oracle then. And Petal, thank you.